Okay, so I'm going to do my best, turn that off, and install the spacer kit for a Element or CRV. This is a 1-inch subframe spacer kit. So this is for anybody that has lifted their CRVs or their Elements. So what you'll need is obviously your car. I'm doing some other projects on it at the same time. But we're going to drop the subframe because I have a ton of axle wobble and it sucks. So here is the kit. This is from HRG Engineering. Ben is an awesome dude. Highly support him. So it comes with the instructions. They're pretty thorough. Obviously he did all of his checks for make sure everything's packed up. You got bolts here labeled nicely. You have your spacers, which are really nicely done. These are actually powder coated parts as well. You have spacers like that, and you also have spacers that have the larger holes as well for some of these bigger bolts that I believe will be going in part of the subframe. He also gives you this really cool funky sticker, and he also sends you this awesome decal. I will be enjoying this job with a nice Busch latte, my drink of choice. So let's get started. Run you through all this stuff. Support the engine, although he did post a video that says it's not necessarily needed, but you can choose to do so if you want. Disconnect and remove battery, move factory airbox, blah blah blah. Now, first step, to remove 2 of the M12s and 1 of the M1235, holding the transmission bracket. So we're working on this side to begin with. There's going to be a replacement bolt on one side. This is going to be your M60. The other side you're replacing is going to be a 65. So let's get into it. So I got the battery out. Yes, I live in Ohio and it is awfully rusty. But another reason why it's so rusty is this hood is bad. I got holes in the damn hood from the spot welds. So I am replacing the hood and it'll help eliminate some of my rust in the engine bay. But what we're going to do is there is a bolt there. And then you have 2 stud bolts. One there and one there. So we're going to remove those 3 bolts and get that, that bracket out of there. So I am going to go ahead and leave my engine intake in there and try to work around it. So, change of plans. Took the intake off. Heck of a lot easier. So, yeah, let's remove these bolts. One here, one here, and then that one there. By the way, it's a 17. You're going to need a deep well for at least 2 of them, and then that one in the back, you can use a short well. So, I proceeded to actually remove the entire stud here, both sides of these longer ones. So now I'm going to have to try to clean up these threads and remove these nuts off of these and put these studs back in, which will get torqued when you torque down the bolts, because the brackets go, or I'm sorry, the spacers go underneath the bracket, as you can see here, here, and here. This one obviously is just a nut that goes down into the transmission, but these studs need to go in, and then the brackets need to go in, and then the bracket. So 1 step forward and 2 steps back, 2 bolts back. So if you come across the same issue here, what I did is I took a grinder wheel, well, a brush wheel I mean, and cleaned up the threads on the inside, or I should say bottom and top. Obviously you see this is the bottom, pretty corroded, top, pretty corroded. Cleaned it up with the brush wheel, so now it looks like this. I had a spare piece of, what was this, 15, 30 seconds rubber tube. This actually will fit, I'll just put that there. This will fit rather nicely over top of that metal piece there, which is what we will be using to grab onto. I'll need another hand, but it'll fit on there, and at least I can get it in the vise and clamp it down really hard to try to get that bolt off. So this side's being a stupid, stubborn bitch. Had to get the heat out. Cleaned it all up. It's got some PB on it. It's not budging, so I'm gonna keep soaking it, and we'll get started on something else. Come back to it. Moving over to the passenger side, we got one stud. Again, you're gonna need a 17 long and one bolt that you're gonna be discarding and replacing. Also a 17, you can use a short, but next is to attack those two. So, got that one out. And of course, as with anything, working on cars, it's not smooth. There's always setbacks. So, this long ass stud is too friggin' long. I don't know if they make extended sockets, like double extended. So this is a deep well, deepest well I have. Obviously we put this on here, whoop, and we're short. So it appears that we're gonna have to take some of this stud off. It's much longer than needed. It appears that we're gonna have to take at least the, sorry, my reach sucks and everything. I'm trying to do this. We're gonna have to take at least the entire head plus of the stud, cut it down. I'm gonna assume maybe 2 inches or so. It'll still give us plenty of space to work with, so that's the next thing. I gotta cut that. And I believe Ben, the creator of this kit, also confirms that. So yeah, that's what we're doing next. Fun. So, cut it off. Here's roughly how much I took. Now, ideally, you would use a baby cutoff, something of this nature, with a cutoff wheel in there. I don't have any of those right now, so I use this big bitch with a smaller blade on it. It's super tight in here. Get a small blade, the smallest that you got. I obviously couldn't get in there at a completely flat angle, which also sucked, but I was able to get it off with that. Just go be super careful, because you got power steering, pump lines right there. Yeah, and just other lines in the area. There's a ground wire. Your brake lines are all right there. And yeah, be careful. So now I'll get to take that off. So, just as this project is going, par for the course, it is not removing it off of the stud. It is actually backing out the entire stud. So I stopped. I didn't want to remove it completely, drop it down, and throw things out of whack. I was able to get the other side apart. I actually had to end up using some vice grips, holding it with the vice grips, holding the vice grips in the clamp, and then taking the ugga-dugga to it. So that is off, but actually it's for this side. So now I'm going to work back to installing this side, and then I'll go over there and do that side. So So, what I ended up doing was putting those studs back in, and removing the stud on the other side. It didn't really drop much on this side, but at least it's still in alignment. I have no clue how you're supposed to fit a 1-inch bracket in there, because there's definitely not enough space for that. So what I'm going to do is just kind of leave this like this. Over on this side though, yeah, make sure you put shit in the way so when you drop it, it goes everywhere. There's obviously enough space under this bracket, whoops, to get both of your spacers in there. So that's what I'm going to do, is get the spacers on this side, and then I'll figure out that side. I think what I'll end up having to do is kind of leaving it loose like that. If you can see the studs, there's one there and one there. Leaving the studs in like that, loose, getting this side all snugged up and tight with the spacers, and then dropping the actual subframe, at least kind of slowly. Probably do this side first and then get these spacers on, because everything will drop then. Yeah, and then we should be good. So this is the stud, oops, that I had to cut. So what I'm going to do is take the grinder, all right, and make that kind of rounded, and then back the bolt off like I've been doing, clean this all up, and yeah, have a new stud that will work. So I'm going to get to it. Okay, this side is in. That's our cut stud, and then obviously you can see I tapered it a little bit. And the new bolt, the 65 bolt, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's one spacer. It's hard to see with the other ones in there as well. Other spacer. So one side done. I still think I need to drop the subframe in order to get this side taken care of, because as you can see, the transmission is touching the transmission mount, and it's pretty, I mean, the mount obviously will move around a little bit, but there's not enough room to get a 1-inch spacer in there. So gonna have to drop the subframe and then come back up here and get those 3 in there. So yeah, on to the next part. Okay, front subframe. We're on this page now. Jack up some wheel and support with jack stands, and I just went over that. You want to use your body mounts, because you got to drop your subframe. You can't jack onto that. Remove blah 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 blah. Careful, lower the subframe. Slide 2 spacers between the body. So we're going to do side by side, just so everything stays lined up. These are going to be your replacement bolts. They're the M14s by 150s. These are your 4 mounts that you're going to be sliding in place. The factory bolts that are on there right now are the 17s, and I believe that is also going to be your replacement size as well. So we're getting to it. Okay, so these are the old bolts. The new ones are in there. We have them in there loosely to make sure that everything stays aligned. We have a jack on this side and a jack on that side, so that we can work on one side at a time. I'm going to lower this side down a little bit. It'll give me enough room to come up here and put the transmission mount brackets and everything in before I go down and slip in the spacers for the frame. So what you want to do when you do these frame spacers though is do one at a time. Ben had also mentioned in his video, pull one out at least to have enough space. Leave that one in so that everything stays aligned and goes in real easy. Slide in your spacer and then attach it. But again, leave it loose. Make sure you get your spacer on this side, and then you can tighten everything up when you're done. So that's where we are. All right, all the spacers are in. There's body mount, or I'm sorry, subframe mount. All the transmission mounts are in. Uno, dos, tres. You got your two on your motor mounts, and then body mount or subframe mount and subframe mount. So the front is done. Maybe I'll do one for the back. I don't know. I got 3%. So battery life. But that's that. And this is a whole nother project up here.